First, let's talk about the Medici family. The Medici family are also known as the House of Medici. The term house in this context signifies a dynasty of significant influence and power. This family ruled the Florence and later the Tuscany during 1434 to 1737. Pero they are not totally ruler or monarchs, but even so, they ruled as de facto leaders. Leaders that hold power or authority. Even if hindi sila totally nirecognize ng batas, de facto leaders are effectively influential leaders. Tyrannically ruler and beneficent patrons of arts. So tyrannically rulers are those leaders na mapang-api or they use their powers. Dinidisregard nila ang rights, freedom, and well-being ng mga bagay-bagay. So he is Cosimo de' Medici, or Cosimo the Elder. He was a prominent member of the Medici family. He played a significant role in the political, economic, and cultural life of his city. As patron of arts, learning, and architecture, he supported many artists, including the architects and scholars, contributing significantly to the cultural and intellectual life of Florence. He is an Italian banker and politician. Cosimo's political influence ay nagsimula noong early 15th century. He was involved in the Medici Bank, which is one of the most successful bank in Europe. Cosimo de' Medici effectively ruled as the city's de facto leaders through political maneuvering and pakikipag-alyansa. So how does the Medici family fund the Renaissance? They fund it through the use of banking empire, financially supported renowned artists, also sponsored scholars, philosophers, and scientists. And they also commissioned some numerous artwork na nag-lead to the creation of iconic works of arts and architecture that are now considered some of the most important pieces of the Renaissance. They also established educational institutions, including the famous Platonic Academy in the Florence, which promoted the study of classical texts and ideas. They also provided a church with the four popes, like Leo X, Clement VII, Pius IV, and Leo XI. De' Medici during the rule of Florence in 15th century. It brought stability and peace to the city, also influenced the Renaissance and to enable the great artists, humanists, and writers to produce their works that have been so influential down the centuries. So there are three branches of Medici family. The minor branch or a failure. It was sometimes referred as the Popolani di Lapo branch. This branch was not as prominent or influential as the senior and junior branches, but was still a part of the Medici family. The Principate branch. This branch produced several influential figures including popes and rulers. And lastly is the Grand Duchy branch. This branch was associated with the governance and administration of the Grand Duchy of Tuscany, and they were notable for their contribution to the arts, culture, and politics in the region. So here are the members of the Medici family. So here are the other members of the Medici family who became part of the Renaissance. Like Lorenzo de' Medici, also known as Lorenzo the Magnificent, a great patron of arts, proponent of humanism, a skilled politician, and was a successful banker. Piero di Comiso de' Medici, known as Piero the Gouty, was the de facto ruler of Florence from 1464 to 1469 during the Italian Renaissance. Giovanni di Bsee de' Medici, he founded the Medici Bank, which became one of the most influential financial institutions in Europe and provided the family with the immense wealth to support the Renaissance. Giovanni di Medici, who became Pope Leo X. Cosimo I de' Medici, the Grand Duke of Tuscany. Lastly is Catherine de' Medici. She was a queen of consort of France and played a significant role in political and cultural life of France.
Now, let's talk about the impact of the Medici family on the society. Medici are intertwined by everything about Florentine history, and it laid the groundwork for cultural prosperity in Florence. It also helped invest modern banking. The Medici owned much of their wealth and power to the Medici Bank. It made them one of the richest families in all of Europe. It was the largest bank in Europe at its peak and was very well respected. Also laid some of the core foundation of the present-day political system in Europe.
Sources of wealth. The Medici family were wool merchants and bankers. They were able to gain significant wealth through their successful businesses, and as bankers, they provided loans to trading partners, and in return, they gained access to goods at below market prices. This allowed them to further expand their trading activities and establish branches in major trading centers across Europe. And their success in both businesses made them one of the early examples of a capitalist family, as they utilized their wealth and business insights to generate even more profits that enabled them to support some poets and artists.
So in connection with the Medici family, Their banking system is the chief bank for the Roman Catholic Curia. It was the largest and the most respected bank in Europe during its prime. It is made more than just facilitating commerce and sustaining a thriving economic company. This was a means for the Medicis to avoid an overlike religiously devout culture. They lent money to other people and hoped to get a large return on what they had lent out.
Renaissance Humanism. It was an intellectual and cultural movement that happened in Europe, particularly in Italy from 14th to 16th century. It was a revival of interest in classical Greek and Roman literature, philosophy, and art that focuses solely on humans. And humanists, they believed in importance of education and they placed a strong emphasis on the potential and dignity of human beings. The main elements of Renaissance humanism: an interest in studying literature and art from antiquity, an interest in the eloquent use of Latin and philology, a belief in the importance and power of education to create useful citizens, the promotion of private and civic virtue, a rejection of scholasticism, the encouragement of non religious studies. An emphasis on the individual under moral autonomy, a belief in the importance of observation, critical analysis, and creativity, a belief that poets, writers, and artists can lead humanity to a better way of living, an interest in the question, what does it mean to be human? These elements of Renaissance humanism had a profound impact on various aspects of society, including education, literature, art, and politics, and they laid the foundation for the cultural and intellectual transformation of that time.
Now, let's proceed to our two Renaissance humanists, Francesco Petrarch, whose study of human though in action, and Giovanni Boccaccio laid the foundation for the humanism. Francesco Petrarch was born on July 20, 1304, and Petrarch laid the foundation to Renaissance humanism through his writing, and he came to be known as the father of the Renaissance. Petrarch is also called a father of humanism. Humanism is an outlook that emphasizes the importance of human affairs over the divine. His father was a lawyer. Francesco's father wanted him to be a lawyer too. So in 1316 to 1320, he sent him to University of Montpellier, France to study law, and later on 1320 to 1323, studied law in the University of Bologna. Francesco loved reading and writing and wanted him to spend all of his time to Latin literature. At nang hinayang siya sa 7 years na nilaan niya sa pag-aaral ng law. Francesco Petrarch, known as the first tourist, because he traveled just for pleasure. Ang isang dahilan din ay he traveled across Europe to find lost manuscript from ancient Crete and Rome. He translated this manuscript for Italians to read. Petrarch's ideas influenced other court tenants or writers and philosophers and helped fuel the flowering of ideas that took off during the Italian Renaissance. On April 8, 1341, he became Rome's poet laureate, a high honor for poets. In France, he wrote his first epic poem, Africa or Africanus. And his writings about Roman history became popular. Petrarch became an Italian celebrity throughout Europe, becoming the first person to receive this title since the Roman Empire. His ideas influenced other writers and philosophers, fueling the Italian Renaissance. Now, let's talk about the literary works of Petrarch. Petrarch's first major is Africa or Africanus, the Neo-Latin epic of the Second Punic War about the Roman general Scipio Africanus turned him into Italian celebrity na sinabi kanina. Ang Second Punic War was fought over a perceived threat to Roman power. Carthage had begun colonizing Spain and Rome responded by declaring war. The Carthaginian general Hannibal marched his army from Spain to Italy and laid waste to the Italian countryside for 16 years. The second one is a canzoniere, also known as Rerum Vulgarium Fragmenta or fragments composed in vernacular, with a total of 366 total poems with 317 sonnets. At the church of St. Clair, Francesco saw a woman and instantly fell in love with her. Her name was Laura, and that is the central theme of his work. Even though they were never close, Francesco spent many years writing poems about her. For about 40 years. These poems later became very famous.
Giovanni Boccaccio, born in Tuscany in 1313 CE, either in Certaldo or Florence. His father was Boccaccio the Cellino, a Tuscan merchant, and nothing is known about his mother except that she may have been French. He is Italian poet, writer, and scholar. He was also a correspondent of Petrarch, important Renaissance humanist. His most famous and influential work is Decameron, completed by 1353, in which his 10 characters present 100 tales of everyday life. Manner of secular themes. The book covers all manner of secular themes and gives a vivid description of the Black Death, which had just hit Boccaccio's home region of Tuscany. Description of the Black Death. The Black Death plague causing chaos and disaster in Florence is described by Boccaccio, a famous author. The plague began with the swelling, some of which grow to the size of an ordinary apple and others to the size of an egg, more or less called gabuscioli or bubus, which spread indiscriminately and became black spots on the arms and thighs. These spots were a definite indication of impending death, and no doctor's advice or medicine could cure it. The plague's social consequences were devastating, with many corpses arriving in front of churches every day, making it difficult to provide proper burials. Boccaccio's account provides valuable contemporary information on the plague's symptoms and social consequences.
The Decameron is a story made by Giovanni which is composed of classical Italian prose with a reference to the most terrifying existential crisis of his time, which is the Black Death. So, balikan natin yung Black Death. He vividly describes physical, social, and psychological sufferings, writing of people dying in the street, rotting corpses, and blackening of the skin that foreshadow death. So, yung Black Death, it leads to fear among people and destroyed family ties dahil nung nagkaroon silang social distancing, nagbunga ito ng hindi pagpapansinan ng mga magkakamag-anak. In such misery and unworthiness, the respectable authority of the law, both human and divine, once was almost entirely cancelled and dissolved. Law enforcers were either dead or shot in with their families, resulting in anarchy. Decameron is a Greek word which means 10 days, Deca for 10 and Hemera for day. It is a tale of renewal and recreation in defiance of a disseminating pandemic. The storytelling starts when the enormous human suffering is interrupted by a ray of light in the form of 7 young noble women and 3 young gentlemen. They become the storytellers and call them brigata or brigade, which refer to a group of people who share a particular characteristics. Umalis sila ng Florence para takasan ang pagkamatay. Each rules for a day and sets stipulations for the daily tales to be told by all participants, resulting in a collection of 100 pieces. Each daily collection of stories takes a different tone or theme, and each day ends with a song. Example, sa day 1, it consists of a witty discussion of human vices. So, sinabing ang Decameron daw ay about renewal and recreation dahil ang pastay ng mga brigata kagaya ng pagkukwento ng story, pagriritual, at paggawa ng mga nakasanayang gawain ay naging daan upang muling ibalik ang mga nawala nung nagkaroon ng Black Death. One of the story in the book is The Patience of Griselda. It is the last story and it was told by Dion on the 10th day. It closes all the cycles of tales. It is a story about her enduring patience and wifely obedience, a wife that is always trying to please her husband. His husband tests him multiple times, and through this and other trials, Griselda maintains her patience and devotion. And finally, when he relents, Griselda is returned to her home and children, winning everyone's admiration.